Welcome to City Inside Out. On tap for today, better neighborhoods. Mayor Nichols recently identified 5 parts of town that will enjoy major new city investment. We'll talk with his Director of Economic Development, Jill Nishi, about which neighborhoods those are and what city help they are likely to get. And later, a leading Fremont businesswoman visits to discuss revitalization in her part of town. We begin, as always, with some news. Well, the Ave and the U District was the site this week of Mayor Nichols' launch of a new wave of neighborhood revitalization. The city is investing nearly $10 million to help rebuild the U District, an area most argue is increasingly unsafe and in decline.
The first and most fundamental piece of bringing back a neighborhood is to make that neighborhood safe. And so on the Ave, we are going to be providing more police presence. We're going to add foot and bicycle patrols. We're going to have more resources of the North Precinct's anti-crime team available for the Ave.
The mayor's plan for the U District includes allowing the UW to lease and build more office space in the neighborhood. Right now, the institution is restricted from further expansion off campus. Some residents fear, however, that more UW development will overwhelm and possibly push out small businesses already there. The U District is one of 5 neighborhoods on the mayor's target list for heavy city attention this year. The others are the Rainier Valley, Pioneer Square, South Lake Union, and Northgate. Well, Councilmember Heidi Wills announced this week that Seattle is hoping to stage another major international event. There will be thousands of participants, spectators, and journalists. But have no fear, this is not the WTO. Rather, it's a bid to host the 2006 Special Olympics.
This event is expected to attract 3,000 athletes from across the country, and they will bring with them between 3 and 5 family members and volunteers and support personnel. So this will attract a great number of visitors to our city, and the games themselves represent the values that this city holds dear. We care very much about inclusiveness and diversity, where everyone can participate in our community in sports and in employment.
The driver behind the Special Olympics effort is local sports promoter Bob Walsh. He is known for bringing several Final Four basketball tournaments to Seattle, as well as the 1990 Goodwill Games. The Special Olympics is expected to generate $25 million in local revenues. Walsh's group says that no public money will be required. A decision about which city will get to host the event will be made in the next few months. And now on to Homeland Security. At the federal level, there is a high alert for terrorism. At the local level, there is a high priority for reimbursement. Mayor Nichols said this week that Congress and the President still haven't given local governments needed money for their post-9/11 security efforts.
We have been promised now for 2 federal budget cycles that there would be a partnership in preparing Seattle and cities across this country for potential terrorist activity, and that partnership has never come to fruition. Cities are the first responders. When emergencies happen, people do not call the White House, they call 911. And the federal government needs to step up with funding for cities to be able to answer those calls.
More now on the safety front. Remember the fatal pipeline explosion up in Bellingham a few years back? Well, Seattle is working hard to ensure that the same tragedy doesn't happen here. Our city also has gas pipelines operated by the same company as Bellingham's. This week, Councilmember Jim Compton reported on the status of an agreement between the city and Olympic Pipeline to ensure that the company meets the highest safety standards.
We want very much to do the best possible job as we award a new franchise to Olympic in being sure that their standards are the highest possible and that we exceed the federal rules for pipeline safety.
Here's a rather pretty picture to show. It comes from business and property owners down in Pioneer Square. They've come up with a vision that looks out 15 to 20 years and imagines what the city's oldest neighborhood could look like. There's much more housing and business development in the plan, even some hotels and condos where the port's loading docks are now. The vision was spurred on by all the talk of tunneling the Alaskan Way viaduct. Doing so would open up lots of opportunities for Pioneer Square, including a seamless transition to the waterfront. There were no cost estimates supplied for the major makeover. No doubt, however, public money and support would be needed. Taxation without representation, or at least taxation without anything to show for it. That was the message to city council members this week. They learned of a proposed countywide property tax levy that would help fund upkeep and operations of parks in the area. The only catch? No money would go to any of Seattle's open spaces. Seattleites would thus pay, but they would not receive under the proposed plan. Among the annoyed was Councilmember Nick Licata.
The King County Parks Task Force did meet last Thursday, and they are sending a recommendation to the executive and the King County Council for a 5.5 cent 6-year levy for parks, which would include regional and rural, no urban unincorporated.
So 30% of the revenues from this tax would be derived from Seattle. And are you saying that zero investment from those taxes would be made in Seattle from this?
Correct.
Here's some rare good news about Puget Sound salmon. They are returning in record numbers this year to the Skagit River. By some estimates, the number of spawning chum salmon is the largest since 1917. It's impossible to know exactly why, but strong evidence leads towards better water flow management by Seattle City Light, which owns dams up on the Skagit River. Whatever the reason, it is nice to be able to pass along something, anything, in the way of good news about local salmon runs. And now for our neighborhood roundup. Here are some of the items of interest from around town. First stop, Pike Place Market. Many street performers there are fighting a new proposal to double the annual permit fees they are charged. New rules would also require a photo ID. Both plans are meant to discourage those who are performing illegally. And underground Seattle, this week the mayor led a tour of the city's efforts to shore up streets and sidewalks under Pioneer Square. Many of the underground supports need special attention since the Nisqually earthquake of 2001. And this alert for all neighborhoods: in observance of President's Day next Monday, city offices will be closed throughout Seattle. And finally, this from Ballard: love is in the hair. A salon up there is helping people to find dates. While waiting for a stylist, patrons can now look through a binder full of pictures and profiles written by other singles. The salon is called Habitude, a perfect idea for this Valentine's Day season. And now on to our City Inside Out calendar, our regular segment featuring activities in the coming weeks. Gary Zarker, should he stay or should he go? That's the question the council will ask of the public at 2 upcoming hearings about the performance of Seattle's City Light Director. The first meeting is Thursday, the 20th of February. The second is Thursday, February 27th. Both are in council chambers. The Parks Department will hold a meeting to unveil final concepts for the Pike Boren Pine Park. All designs incorporate the famous 4 columns that have been there for quite some time. That meeting is on February 27th. 2 district council meetings to announce. The Greater Duwamish Group meets on February 26th. The Northwest District Council also meets on the 26th. And finally, a Black History Month luncheon will be on February 26th. The keynote speaker, Carl Mack, the newly elected president of the local NAACP. And for more information about any of these events, we direct you to our website at www.seattlechannel.org. And finally today, Oscar time is nearing, meaning it's awards season. Well, Seattle gave out a few honors of its own recently. The winners of the citywide student art contest for Neighbor Appreciation Day. 5th grader Lanisha Seacrest submitted the chosen picture. It has been put on the front of 17,000 greeting cards available free from the city. We're pleased to show you the runner-ups also. 2nd place went to 11th grader Stephanie Savage. Third place was for second grader Emily Gu. An honorable mention went out to fifth grader Ann Podensky and fifth grader Tammy Shu. Congrats to them all. And that's it for the news. Stay with us, though. In a moment, find out if your neighborhood is on the mayor's list to be revitalized this year. The head of the city's Office of Economic Development joins us, and later, a leader from Fremont gives her thoughts on re-energizing that part of town. All that ahead when our program continues in a moment. We now welcome Jill Nishi. She is the director of the city's Office of Economic Development. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
So the mayor in his State of the City address announced 5 areas that he is paying particular attention to this year: the U District, Pioneer Square, Rainier Valley, South Lake Union, and Northgate. All important neighborhoods, great, vibrant contributors to our city. What, however, about all the other neighborhoods in town?
Yeah. Well, the mayor focused on these, neighborhoods in particular because we are focusing on them because of some of the challenges they have faced over the last couple of years. But that's not to say that our office won't be focusing on some of the other areas of town. So, for example, we'll also be working on Broadway in the central area. My colleagues in the Department of Neighborhoods will be working in South Park and Delridge. So while we've got today, the focus is on those 5 neighborhoods. We're going to continue to work in other areas of the city.
How did these happen to come up? I mean, was it they're particularly bad?
Yeah, I think the neighborhoods that the mayor did announce have had over time some significant challenges. You mentioned, the Ave. For some time, I think for those of us who've grown up in the city, we've seen the Ave change quite a bit from once a very vibrant commercial neighborhood corridor to one that's had lots of challenges. There are quite a few vacancies along the Ave. There are public safety challenges along the Ave. And so we're hoping there is some momentum to change all of that right now.
The mayor had a press conference there the other day announcing several different programs, changing, re-asphalting the street, putting in street trees, more police patrols, all the rest. Additions that I'm sure the U will celebrate, and those in the U District. How do you, however, go the next step and get all those storefronts, which have become vacant along the Ave, get those to be occupied?
Good question. This first set of initiatives, I think, sets the stage for bringing in additional businesses. So the city taking a look at some of the public safety needs up on the Ave, the city looking at the infrastructure, hopefully will be incentives for businesses to consider the Ave as a place to do business and to sustain themselves. Following that, my office is taking a look at a marketing analysis to say what kinds of retail services and what kinds of housing can the Ave support, and that will enable us to develop a set of more specific strategies on attracting specific kinds of businesses, talking to developers about what's possible in terms of housing development along the Ave and within the University District.
Let's say you do your market analysis and you identify certain kind of businesses that the fit feels right. Then what's the role? Walk us through kind of how an Office of Economic Development can go from a study to literally attracting a small business to rent a storefront.
Sure. Well, the first things we need to do is to be able to kind of communicate the demand, to let the private community and let the private sector know that there is in fact a market here. A market that can support additional businesses, that can support certain types of retail shops and services. So I think one of our roles is to be able to communicate information to people. Secondly, we can work with developers to say, here are where the vacancies are. We get a number of calls from developers, brokers, about their clients looking for possible areas in the city to locate. And so part of our role is a broker of information to say, these are our requirements, what can the city do to assist me in identifying a possible location?
The city has a great history of low-income housing contributions and subsidies. A lot of folks that are in great housing today because of that. Is there something similar on the business side? Is the city allowed to actually give subsidies for a small business that it wants to locate in a certain area?
Well, our state has a fairly stringent constitutional prohibition on lending its credit for the purposes of private benefit. So that, that does prohibit us to, in terms of providing specific kinds of incentives for businesses. However, what we can do in some of our more distressed areas of town is to provide some low interest financing to make projects viable in a particular area or neighborhood that's been particularly challenged economically. So we do have some tools for areas where the market is not naturally working.
Is there times where you may be your own worst enemy? And here let me give you an example. South Lake Union getting a lot of attention, a lot of private investment, city attention. MBBJ, the big architecture firm, announces a couple weeks ago that they're going to move into South Lake Union. Great, everyone's hurrah, gonna put a lot of money into it and create even a better company, I suppose, as a result. And yet, the loser in that equation is Pioneer Square, where MBBJ has been stationed for so long. So you got Pioneer Square and South Lake Union both on this target list. What happens when you're just shuffling people around? And
well, I think in that instance, the instance of MBBJ, the city was just thrilled that they were staying in the city. I mean, it is important. MBBJ is a large architecture firm. We were happy that they decided to remain in the city. The question of where in the city, obviously, we had some interest in having them stay in Pioneer Square because of some of the challenges that community has been facing. Nonetheless, businesses need to make decisions based on a number of factors. One is that we're in a very soft real estate market right now, and there was some opportunity for them to look in other places. So we certainly want to be able to encourage people to stay in certain neighborhoods, but the fact that MBBJ decided to stay within the city was a plus for us, and we will be working with the property owner down in Pioneer Square, as well as with the community to identify someone else to move into that space.
your role is to hear from business owners who are part of the fabric of all these different neighborhoods and hear their complaints, hear their problems, hear their frustrations. What comes to the surface most? Is it parking? What do you hear most from these folks that the city can do something about?
I think there's a couple of areas. One is in some of the neighborhood business districts that are being economically challenged right now, public safety is a big issue. We've got to be able to ensure that visitors, shoppers, residents in a particular area do feel safe. And that's one area, particularly on the Ave, where the city is working to increase Seattle Police Department's presence with foot patrols, bike patrols on the street. So public safety is a primary issue. I think a secondary issue is housing. And I think you talked to my colleague the other day, Katie Hong, about what the city can do to create long-term residents in an area, because they in fact are the base of people that will continue to invest in the community. They're the businesses that will, the residents that will patron the businesses that are there. So one of the strategies we're looking at is how do you create and develop mixed-use housing projects in some of our neighborhood commercial corridors so that there is in fact a base of consumers as well as a base of community that supports that area.
What do you say that the mayor, I think, had $10 million in improvements to announce the other day at the U District, including resurfacing the streets, the new bike patrols, all the rest. There's certainly not that kind of money to place in all these other neighborhoods, not even really in the other 5 he's got here. What do you say to those who aren't on this list yet, who want these kinds of improvements, who want more street patrols, who could use pothole repair, all the rest? Are they gonna get any money? Is there gonna be any money left next year?
Yeah, there's no doubt this is a very, very difficult economic time. We went through a very difficult budget cycle, but nonetheless, we think we can be creative, developing partnerships with the business community. Again, going back to a very good example of how we were able to increase police presence was 4 of the major employers in the University District have made contributions through the business improvement area to provide additional police patrols. So it's a partnership. The city can make its investments, but we're also going to look to the business community to support us in our efforts.
10 seconds. How's Fremont doing?
I think Fremont's doing great.
And we'll hear more about Fremont in our next segment. Jill Nishi, thanks for being here. You're the director of the city's Office of Economic Development.
Thanks for having me, CR.
And stay with us. Up next, at the neighborhood level, we talk with a leader from Fremont, Susie Burke, when we continue. We now welcome Susie Burke. She is a longtime leader in the Fremont neighborhood, a business owner, president of the Fremont Dock Company. Thanks for coming in.
My pleasure.
How is the city doing at neighborhood revitalization?
When are they going to start?
I mean, what do you?
I have some kudos.
What do you say when you read the mayor's State of the City address, when he talks about the 5 neighborhoods he wants to identify, etc.?
Well, first I have to put into disbelief my theory that State of the City addresses don't necessarily mean anything. I'm sorry, I've been around here too long. But I do have some kudos for him talking about potholes, because I got to tell you, that's still a problem and it's still something we want to see. And most of our potholes are in our sidewalks. I mean, we have trees lifting sidewalks, and we have some real need there, and that's something only the city can help with. I think talking about the viaduct, fixing the Mercer mess, those big projects that will come are absolutely dynamically important to keep the north end of Seattle working, and I think the whole city, but my little area is north of the city. Those things are very important to talk about. But when it comes to neighborhoods, what do the neighborhoods need? My sense is, first and foremost, he talked about jobs. And the big creator of jobs in the city of Seattle and everywhere across America is the small business community. That's where the focus needs to be.
And isn't it, we just heard from Jill Nishi, his business liaison in effect. Have you had the kind of assistance from that office and from the mayor's office, not just recently, but in the several decades you've really been involved in Fremont? Have you had that kind of help and assistance?
No.
Really?
But, let's take a look at what they think their job is. When you put the label economic development on it, somehow it's their job to develop something that isn't there. And my sense is much more, Fremont is there for a reason, and it's at its particular crossroads, because history and all kinds of things. And you got to work with what's there, why it's there, and what works there. We really are the center of the universe, you do understand.
Which is what they call you. However, we were talking before we went on, there's a neighborhood, there's a city hall, in effect, in Fremont.
That is
very good. I mean, they have done, it's not fair, is it, to say they haven't done anything?
Well, they haven't done it this year. And I think maybe they're getting ready.
What's going well, though?
Okay, my little city hall, Steve Louie, takes care of all the neighborhoods that wrap around Lake Union. Absolutely dynamically wonderful man. My history house in Fremont had an awards ceremony for all those folks who do that kind of work across the city. Everyone showed up because they wanted to thank their person who works in their little neighborhood places, keeping them informed. That part works. Why can't he give out a building permit? Why can't he help us get a TI permit to move a door or hang an awning? That's where the city's falling down. The city's falling down with the small business community, and that's who I speak for, with the ability to know what they can do in this town and get it done efficiently.
You are in favor, I assume then, of his plan to rewrite the land use code.
Absolutely. 1,500 pages of disagreement with itself has got to go. And in the course of doing that, someone ought to look at how much we downzoned in the 80s, and then in the 90s we built everything that was easy to build. And then you will see the answer for why you're not getting housing where you want to get housing. And maybe in some instances why you're not getting new commercial activity.
What's the biggest single thing that would help you in Fremont? Is it the land use code? Is it more police? Is it...
Well, we have an incredibly good relationship with North Precinct. I can't say enough about North Precinct.
So you're not here to complain about public safety?
Only one issue from my point of view. I'm not here to... Fremont is probably the safest place to be in town. But North Precinct has to take care of half of the city's geography with a quarter of the city's police. So they are running their legs off and their tires off. If the U District needs more policing, it's part of this problem that is across the North End, that North Precinct does not get enough manpower. But beyond that, I can't say enough about public safety, and I really can't say enough about trying to make the U District safer. No question, they need it.
Fremont seems to have the opposite problem that were described in the sort of the top 5 neighborhoods the mayor described.
But we've been working on it for 25
You've been working on
years.
it. You've been working on it. But all these places are having people move out. They have storefronts that are empty. They aren't safe. They've got drug dealers. They got homeless folks, kids on the
We have
street, all
folks
the
moving
rest.
in.
You're busting at your seams, and the complaint that comes with the complaint, which is that Fremont has lost its charm, its funkiness, all the rest. What are the challenges of keeping Fremont fun and funky in the center of the universe amidst all the development, much of which you've
worked on? Yeah. Well, we work at it every day of the week. I mean, yesterday was strategic planning for the Chamber of Commerce, which is all volunteer stuff. And the cutest thing about what's happening right now is we've got them moving back in from Greenwood, from Ballard, these places that they went to thinking, well, they're going to get out of the way.
Meaning small businesses.
Yeah, small businesses moving back in. We have a culture. And the thing about Fremont is you want to be there. If you don't want to be there, we don't want you there because we have a culture. We call it the vortex. We call it the center of the universe for a reason. The folks who are there really want to be there. Now, do we get in each other's way once in a while? Sure. We're talking about who does enough sweeping up when one of these construction projects is working, because that's a problem in the winter. Right now, we have the PCC about to open up, and it's going to be twice as big as it's been. Does that change the culture? Yes. You can buy your tomatoes faster and better, and they have more stuff. When Pete's Coffee moves in to the corner of 34th and Fremont in April, that officially makes we have more coffee shops than Thai restaurants.
That's a milestone.
We're starting to work on Mexican next. I mean, it's kind of fun to see the yin and the yang of it. We have more artists than we've ever had. We have more housing than we've ever had. We have more small business than we ever had. Does that mean we're taking care of absolutely everybody? Probably not, but we're sure working on it.
No vacant storefronts like you have up in Broadway, like you have in the U District.
And it's got a landowner that just won't deal with it. And there's a few of those in other communities.
But what's the secret? If you're here to say you've been successful and your community's been successful, in the minute left, why is that, and what do you have to teach other neighborhoods?
I think we're successful because we work on it every day of the week, and we work on it together. We have Fremont Soup Night. We have things going. We support each other. We actually talk to each other. It's really kind of cool. The city needs to do what the city does, which is we do need sidewalk repairs. We do need potholes fixed. We have 20-year out planned lights at intersections that gosh knows how we're going to get that done because of city finances. There's things that the city needs to do. I'm not sure it's economic development, but I'm not going to interfere with them working in some neighborhoods that have other challenges. I'm just a little more concerned about their commitment to basic city services.
Thank you so much for being here. Susie Burke, rather, they call you the Baroness of Fremont.
Oh, they call me a lot.
Yeah. Today we'll call you the Baroness of Fremont. Thanks so much for being here. And thank you all for watching. Join us next week for another edition of City Inside Out. Until then, on behalf of our talented studio crew here, I'm C.R. Douglas. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.